Oh.
It is sad to say you've never experienced that.
All right, it looks like I am live on all 3 devices. So we're going to give this a whirl. Don't ask me how this is going to work, because I'm actually not sure nor convinced that this is going to work. So, welcome to the live stream. Today's topic will be healthcare for all, the progressive movement, and you. So I am streaming on my personal, my verified, and my YouTube channel. So whichever one floats your boat, share it, like it, do whatever you got to do. Hey, Zach, nice to see you. Dan, nice to see you guys on here. Kevin, Dan Cavino, Renee, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm experimenting with the setup, so I'm going to be looking in 3 different directions, so just kind of bear with me on that. Alexander, welcome. And Shamim, also welcome. So the universal healthcare thing, that's hitting the news networks hard because Bernie Sanders proposed his Medicare for All Act, and it's the most comprehensive Medicare for All bill on the Senate floor of all time, blah, 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 and we got a bunch of senators supporting it for once. Now, granted, not universally, unfortunately. There's still a few holdouts on the Democratic side now. The interesting thing about that conversation is that there are Democrats who still support Medicare for All. It's just not necessarily Bernie's bill. There are 4 going on. And so a lot of the outrage is, well, why aren't they supporting specifically Bernie's bill? Why are they just, I mean, if there's 4 to choose from, why not pick the best one? I don't want to speculate. I don't want to talk about that. I do want to clarify that there are 4, and that the Democratic senators, I do believe, all are, in one way, form, or fashion, trying to endorse one of those. But what is healthcare, right? What is universal healthcare specifically? Medicare for All is expanding the Medicare program, which is one of the largest and most successful, most popular government programs in U.S. history, right? It's what you get to use when you're old, or if you meet other certain specifications, which I'm not going to get into. However, we're going to expand it with Medicare for All to everybody. So whether you're young, old, child, doesn't really matter, you get the same access. So what's the difference between Medicare for All and universal health care? Well, Medicare for All still has co-pays, it still has out-of-pocket expenses, minimal, or at least what would be perceived as minimal since you won't be paying for health insurance monthly, but it's still out-of-pocket. Now, it is largely accepted everywhere in the country, so you don't have to worry about being dropped. It will be freely available to everyone, so again, you're covered by the Affordable Care Act as it currently stands. And it's already paid for by your taxes. And yes, you are paying for people who don't have jobs or whatever because it's paid through taxes, but that money, that resource that's already allocated to everyone anyway is going to actually benefit you whether you are employed or not, or if you're a student and don't have a job and can't get a job. So I think some of the discussion needs to be discussed with why is that not a problem? And why do conservatives continue to use that as an excuse or a reason to not fight for universal health care? Why is it such a big deal that not everyone is able to pay into it? Do you really want your 12-year-old not to get free, affordable, quality health care if they get sick or if they get hurt? Because by definition, a 12-year-old can't work. In no state in our country can a 12-year-old work to put into the Medicare program, right? And most college students are going to school full-time. Do you really expect students to be working 40 hours and going to school 40 hours a week, or dedicating 40 hours a week to education? I mean, granted, that is what happens due to our economic standing, but is it realistic? It isn't. So why should you have to suffer or overburden yourself and stress yourself out and develop health problems because of extra work stress, because of education stress, to get the health care that you need, right? Should the unforeseeable happen. Healthcare for all or Medicare for All, allows an existing program to simply be broadened, right, to everyone, so that it's all-inclusive. And it's already being paid for as an all-inclusive thing. And now, I've gone into a few discussions on healthcare before, such as with the healthcare, the way it currently operates, hospitals charge whatever they charge for, say, a broken hand. Remember when I had my little meat tenderizer and I scared the bejesus out of everybody? Say I break my hand, and I go to the doctor, Kettering. I go to Kettering, and it's like $500 to get fixed, but they charge me, say, 2.5, a multiplier of 2.5. See, the thing that most people don't realize is that there's multipliers. Now, a long story short, Kettering, Dayton, Cincinnati, they're all going to have different rates, different multipliers, because they're different hospitals, different regions, different whatever. At the end of the day, though, they all get Medicare. Every single hospital, every single medical facility in this country gets some sort of Medicare payout. Now, I'm not going to pretend to know what that calculation is, because I honestly don't. I admit freely, I do not know how that money is determined. What I do know is, if you take the revenue of any given hospital, dividing it by their multiplier, and subtracting it by what Medicare payouts they do get, it is either a zero balance, a negative balance, or a minimal out-of-pocket expense. Meaning, for instance, the River Valley, no. Lancaster Valley, I can't even remember. It's the hospital in my hometown of Lancaster. It's been a long weekend, folks. That hospital makes a revenue of about $53 million, and I believe it had a 2.13 multiplier, and it made approximately $23 million in Medicare, as in it got paid by Medicare, the federal government, the Medicare program. It was given a chunk of $23 million. If you take the 53 divided by 21.3 and subtract the $23 million that it got from Medicare, and again, I believe these are the correct numbers. You can pull it up on my website, www.ronanforcongress.com, under the healthcare analysis. I believe the net cost was $17 per all 3,000 patients that were seen. That is what Medicare for All can do. Hospitals are already seeing X amount of patients throughout the course of their timeline, and they're getting a payment. What the net cost, the actual real cost of treatment would be. And that's what we fail to have in the conversations. Medicare for All would continue to pay the base cost of medical treatment, whether it's an injury, whether it's an illness, whether it's ongoing, short-term, or whatever. What would happen is that the government would then be able to say, we are going to get rid of the multipliers and we will standardize the cost. So whether you go to Cincinnati, Dayton, Columbus, friggin' Arkansas, Texas, California, you will pay the same price for treatment and for care. And it will be the same across the board, and the hospital would get paid by the block of money that is given through taxation, through our workers' wages, into the Medicare fund. It'll be distributed into those hospitals. That is Medicare for All. Now, again, I did just say that sometimes it would be a balance, sometimes it would be a negative, and sometimes it would be a net out-of-pocket cost. I think anybody that is watching this or who will watch this can agree, $27 or thereabouts to get cancer treatment, to get your broken bones fixed, to take care of whatever injury or illness that you have, is a very small price to pay, when that is the only price you have to pay, aside from whatever tax is already taken out of your paycheck each week, or month, or however often you get paid. No additional insurance required. No co-pays, no deductibles, no nothing. Simply your taxes. That is what Medicare for All provides. Now, that is a humongous leap in the right direction of universal health care. So the question is, Mr. Ronan, you're running for Congress and you're trying to say that universal health care is better than Medicare for All when you just explained that it would eliminate the multiplier effect and it would standardize the cost of health care across the country. It would still allow it to be paid for the way it is currently paid for, without an excess in taxation, and with thus lower costs regardless. So why would we even need another step of this universal health care? What is universal health care? Thank you for asking. Universal health care is that next step to include pharmaceuticals and to ensure that there are no out-of-pocket costs, ever. So that even if that net minimal whatever still would somehow exist, but you needed drugs, or you needed therapy, or you needed mental health care, or you needed dental work, or you needed whatever, you are covered. Universal health care means universal coverage of all forms of health care, mental, dental, and regular health, from child, cradle to grave. Well, I guess if you're dead, you don't need health care, but you get the idea. Universal health care gives the full encompassing coverage. It's like, okay, I get it. So Medicare for all wouldn't necessarily cover pharmaceuticals. It would allow the government to negotiate costs, which is cool. That's, again, great first step. Not arguing that Medicare for all is not a good idea or something that's needed or that it's something I support. I absolutely do support it, 1,000%. But universal health care, that discussion, that topic, that idea is taking it to that next level so that the drugs, the therapy, mental health care, dental care, all of it is covered. Because under Medicare for all, I do believe it does not cover mental health, and it doesn't obviously cover pharmaceuticals. I do believe it covers dental, but I could be wrong about that. Again, I haven't delved into the cajillion pages of Bernie's proposed legislation. So if anybody would like to comment on that, please do. I would happily correct myself in real time. Rob Baxter. Sam, you've been on Real Progressives a few times. You know damn well how Medicare for all would be paid for. MMT! I get it. We're not getting into the MMT right now, though. Bonnie, Florney, this is a relevant question. Why is healthcare tied into our jobs? They deny jobs based on the color of our skin. That's a very good question. If healthcare is tied into our paychecks anyway, why don't we have access to it in the first place? Because we are, in effect, paying for it. Yet we don't get to access it until we're either old or infirm or some other qualifying factor. Doesn't make sense, does it? Medicare for all, at the very least, guarantees that what you're paying into, you have access to. So that's a very strong argument, and it's an easier argument to make than universal health care, because that sounds too lofty, it sounds too good to be true, and it does sound like ponies or unicorns or getting free stuff, and it's not. It's just a greater allocation of resources and funds that we already have in excess, and it's encompassing more in the healthcare network, the healthcare industry, than just your physical health or your dental health. It's also to include your mental health, and of course from childhood onward. That's why I personally, as a congressional candidate in Ohio's 1st District, am an advocate for universal health care on my platform page, but I absolutely unequivocally support the Medicare for all. So I hope that kind of clears up a lot of the confusion and misconception about it. I guess to address some of the concerns about, well, who's going to pay for it, and how is it going to function and whatnot. What about wait times? Right? That's the biggest one conservatives use, that it's going to increase wait times. Well, if you've watched Fox News, I know, they've brought Canadian doctors over to discuss that. The wait times are either the same or less in Canada, because the only qualifying factor is emergency level, meaning, is your arm dangling off by a thread, or do you have a cold or a nosebleed, right? If you have something minor, yes, it's going to take longer to be seen because it's not life-threatening, it's not an emergency, right? And with a universal, with a Medicare for all kind of program, there would be the stratification of what's an emergency, what's necessary, and what isn't. And that's not a problem. Now, again, just speaking on what the concept is and not discussing what's actually in the bill, discussing what Medicare for all does and universal health care and how it would operate. Yes, there would be wait times, as there currently are. I mean, I can't imagine, I don't actually recall a time where I went to the hospital and I was seen instantly. In fact, I've even had fevers of like 102, my fever breaking while in the waiting room, and then being given antibacterials. It's just, I'm paying for healthcare and I'm still not being seen at a quick rate, right? That's because we're understaffed. And in many ways, there's also an legally, mind you, like legislatively, as in the law of the land is doctors are the ones that have to do the prescriptions and the diagnoses. Whereas a nurse practitioner is basically one step removed from a practicing doctor. They get paid less and they have a slightly lesser, certification, but they can do everything a doctor can do short of surgery. What this Medicare for All universal health care would do and allow us to do is specialize our healthcare so that doctors are truly the specialists, that their jobs is to do the hard stuff, to do the surgeries, to do the nitty-gritty specialized things, and to allow nurse practitioners to more cheaply, more economically treat the common things. That's what they went to school for. That is the purpose of being a nurse practitioner and a nurse in general, to take care of the small ailments, but to give them the right and the authority to diagnose. That's what's lacking. If we could allow nurses and nurse practitioners to diagnose, right, or to give them at least initial diagnosis authority and powers, so that at least there is some sort of paper trail saying, this person came in bleeding from their ears, eyes, and nose, this is probably blah, blah, blah. And then they come in later on and the doctor's like, yeah, this is actually not that, it's something even worse, better, whatever. And then the doctor gets to supersede the initial diagnosis. I'm all for that, because guess what? That's structure, that's hierarchy, and it allows an expedition of, or an expediency of healthcare treatment. That is the difference between a for-profit system where you're gonna get seen based on what kind of profit they can make off of you, right? Because if you have a nosebleed, they're gonna just, if his arm's dangling off, we can charge him thousands of dollars to stick that sucker back on, right? Whereas with the universal healthcare, it's about what is the ailment, how serious is it, and how quickly can we treat you? How realistically can we treat you? And the other thing with universal healthcare is if this facility is incapable of doing it, you can be transported at no cost to one that can. We're allowed to rotate and to allocate the resources as they are needed, whereas a for-profit thing will charge you for the helicopter ride, the ambulance ride, so on and so forth. So, that's the answer to, or the rebuttal to, what about my wait times? Now, I enjoy talking about healthcare because it's just, to me, it makes too much sense, right? That should be a guaranteed right, and it's something we pay into already, and it's something that's already sustainable now without raising taxes. And yes, I will go on the record, and people can hold that against me in any interview and any discussion at any point in time. They can quote me. Medicare for All does not require any increase in taxes. What it does require is a standardization of the cost and a removal of the multiplier costs. That's all it requires. And our overall cost of healthcare would go down, and Medicare would allow us to have that opportunity. Now, to talk about the movement. Recently, very recently in fact, I was the recipient of a smear campaign, and I was lambasted for not being progressive enough, that I'm only Dem Enter and I need to be more Dem Exit, and that I should be Green Enter, Green New Deal, and this, that, and the other. And even on Twitter, I was threatened by CFAR or BUST, some organization that wants me to sign a contract about how I adhere to this platform and I am beholden to the people. I didn't want to sign the contract because they were being very rude and abrasive. The Green Party continues to reach out to people and wanting to bring him in, and then there's certain individuals that make you feel bad or guilty for not joining the Green Party when you're in Ohio or Idaho. And then you have the Dem Enter crowd lambasting the Dem Exit crowd for not thinking straight. And the Dem Exit crowd saying, I will never ever go Dem again, and you Dem Enters are horrible, and how can you be a Hillbot? And we just attack each other. Honestly, I don't care that I was attacked. I was expecting it to happen at some point. It's just disappointing that it's happening from people that I'm natural allies with. We are all natural allies as progressives. I don't care if you're Dem Enter or Dem Exit. Quite frankly, I'm both. I'm Dem Entering as a congressional candidate on the Democratic primary, and I'm Dem Exiting by building our voice and helping that organization to grow so that we can have a center point to launch ourselves off of. So that if nothing else, if you go to a new state and you want to get involved in activism or local just community outreach or helping local candidates, you can go to Our Voice, go to the database in the directory, and find your location and look at the things. That's all I'm trying to do. And it's a network. It's just a database. It's just information. Something that doesn't exist. A compilation of data in one location. That's all I'm trying to do. But that's Dem Exit. I'm also Dem Entering. I also support the Green Party candidates. Kenny Mejia, for whatever reason, I don't know where that disconnect ever occurred way back then, He's running for Congress again in California. Good. Do it. Support him. I really hope he does a great job. Like, you know, I have no idea who else is running over there as a Democrat, Republican, or otherwise. But Kenny is good people. If he could win, great. What he has to understand, and what the Green Party has to understand, and what I've been trying to convey to people that want to do third party and growing the Green Party and the Libertarian Party or other parties in general, is that you have to do the same thing I suggested that the Democratic Party do. You have to be inclusive. You have to build your structure, and you have to focus on the local areas. And that isn't to say local races. That is to say the local areas. If you are in Los Angeles, that's still local. I mean, it's LA, and it's a friggin' huge city, right? But you got to build your structure in those local precincts so that when you do run for Congress, you can collaboratively work together to help the congressman or help the state representative or help the state senator. Here's why that's important. So the Green Party is an established party. It's nationally recognized, although it doesn't always get ballot access, as it didn't in Ohio last year, right? So in 2016, the Secretary of State denied the Green Party ballot access in Ohio. But what they didn't do is continue to build their infrastructure. They did not continue to build their party presence in rural Ohio or in metropolitan Ohio. They just have their state party, and they have like the meetings, and I honestly can't find anything out about them. Maybe I don't know where to look, and that's kind of part of the problem. And I get it, it's resources, it's money, that's kind of the issue. Notwithstanding. But if we're grassroots, we don't need money. We just need organization, we need collaboration, right? We can do the money fundraising thing amongst our own circles, but we have to be willing to work together. And the most important thing we need to do is focus on building those local organizations. Now, Green Party is its own objective. Dem Exit is its own objective. Dem Enter is its own objective. They have their own paths forward. Does that mean that they are intrinsically against one another? No, they're not. Just because I'm Dem Entering does not mean I have any intention of getting in the way of Dem Exit or Green Party or Justice Dems or Brandon. I don't care. Do you. And let me help you. Let me elevate you while I'm Dem Entering or Dem Exiting or going Green New Deal. In fact, if you're going Dem Enter, why not support the Green New Deal? It is a very left-leaning policy. I support the Green New Deal. And I also support my own policies. I support my progressivism. I support Bernie Sanders. Why are those mutually exclusive? Why are those efforts mutually exclusive? That is the question. Why does every facet of the progressive movement have to be the victory? That is the only way and the only path forward, and it is this heroic effort that will save the day. Because it's not. I'm sorry, it's just not. The Green Party is perhaps a decade or two away from being able to organize to the same consistency and the same prominence as the Democratic Party. So they need the support of Dem Enter, and they need the support of Dem Exit. That isn't a negative thing. That isn't a judgment. That's just a fact. It's going to take time to build a third party to the same level of capacity as the Democratic or the Republican parties. It's just a fact. And until and unless we come together and start enabling each other instead of combating one another and trying to tear each other down, we're not going to move forward, right? Attacking me, what does that actually accomplish? Honestly, seriously. What good comes of saying Samuel Ronan, who's running for Congress, who ran for the DNC chair, who supports Tim Canova, who is fighting for progressives everywhere, who spoke about Dapple and Sable on CNN, who did all these things, who's trying to build our voice, who's trying to create the support structure, who's trying to elevate others, who's trying to reach out to other news outlets and to other progressive organizations and bring them together. What good does that serve to attack me? What good does it serve to attack Tanya or Steve Grumbine or John Lancelot? I didn't attack John. I said, stop attacking me. Let's make it about the issues. Let's not make it a personal mudslinging fest. But he was angry and he was upset because I was abrasive. Fine. I apologize for being abrasive. Is that enough reason to tear me apart? Is that enough reason to tear John apart? No. It's dumb. And it's... that's actually the word that I used to trigger that. I need to work on that. Sorry, hey, I can admit my faults, and being abrasive could be one of them. We have to start working together. Like that, as a congressional candidate, as a potential congressman, I'm going to have to work with Nancy Pelosi. I'm going to have to work with Kamala Harris. I'm going to have to work with, as much as it pains me to say, Paul Ryan and Ted Cruz. I'm going to have to work with these people. Some that we call animals, some that we call sellouts, some that we call establishment. I am going to have to work with them. Let me repeat that. If I, Samuel Ronan, am elected, despite my extreme unapologetic progressive agenda and desires, I will have to work with people who are diametrically opposed to those agendas. If I want to pass legislation, or if I want to be a part of the process at all, I'm going to have to say, Paul, you can't get away with killing 24 million people because you want to give billionaires a $1 trillion tax break. You can't do that. If you insist on this, I'm going to get up on the stage and I'm going to have the floor in Congress. I'm going to call you the idiot that you are. That's what I will do. Right? As a congressman, that will be my role, to call out the stupidity if I can't negotiate or maneuver or get the bill passed that I want to pass. Right? That's the political process that we currently find ourselves in. Unfortunately, it isn't, hey, Paul, I see what you're trying to do. You're trying to lower taxes for the wealthy. Cool, because you're selling us that if they have more money, they'll build jobs. How about this? I will see your tax break for the billionaires if you guarantee that tax dollars, that those monies from those corporations and those entities must be invested, that there will be a penalty of a 100% of that tax break to be taken, like what Eisenhower did, the 94% tax rate, that those monies, if not utilized as an investment into whatever that benefits the middle class, if you don't do that, I will not help your bill and I will go after everything that you're trying to pass. That's what I can do as a congressman, right? Whatever Kenny's promising, that's what he can do. Whatever Tim's saying, that's what he can do. Tulsi is proposing legislation left, right, and center, right? She's got 4 bills going right now. You know how she's going to get them passed? By talking to Paul Ryan, by talking to Debbie Wasserman Schultz, because she is currently in a sitting elected official. She's going to have to talk to Nancy Pelosi. She's going to have to talk to all these people, the incumbent in my district. She's going to have to talk to them in order to get it passed. That doesn't mean she'll get everybody to vote for it, but she's going to have to talk to them. We have to work together. And if we're going to be progressives, and we're going to tear it down, take it over, infiltrate, do whatever, if we are doing the same exact thing as the people we are trying to replace, we are no better. And I will not apologize for saying it. So let me repeat it. If we as progressives are going to attack each other and tear each other down so that this one thing can be successful, then we are no better than the Democrats, and we are no better than the Republicans, and we are no better than the current political system as it stands. We have to be better. We must be better. Because if we are not, because if we succeed to replace them, we are only replacing them with a different darkness. Sure, we'll all be progressives, and we'll all, let's just say all 435 congressional seats are taken over by progressives. Let's just say that happens. If we then focus all of our energies and efforts in attacking one another and not passing legislation because the Green New Deal wing is having an argument with the Dem Enter wing, which is having an argument with the Dem Exit wing, that wants to do Medicare for all versus universal health care versus something in between, when they're all intrinsically the same because that one faction wants to be the hero, how are we any different than the Democratic Party, who is obstructing the Republican administration so that the Republicans can't have a win? How are we any different than the Republicans who obstructed the Obama administration for 8 solid years, forcing the Obama administration and Democrats to go right and right and right and right so that anything could get passed? How are we any different if we are only going to get in our own way? We cannot be obstructionists to ourselves. We are better than that. Or at least that's what I am hoping. I am a progressive because the things that I believe in, that's the label that applies. I'm an FDR Democrat. I'm an Eisenhower Republican. That is my values. That is my beliefs. That is how you can correlate it and define it and describe it in a very simple, digestible fashion. FDR Democrat, Eisenhower Republican, progressive. I'm not going to fight you because we agree so much, or that we agree just slightly less than 100% on this one topic. Why would I do that? Why are we doing that to each other? It frustrates me to no end every time Steve Grumbine talks about MMT and people attack him. That's not how it works. Yes, actually, that is how economics works in our country. MMT isn't a radical, revolutionary idea of what economics could be. That's actually how our economic system works. The problem is the definition of how it functions is through taxation, because it is a massive concept that we can't understand. Because if we actually implemented our allocation of resources, our social programs, in the MMT fashion, as in truly embracing the MMT that is already in existence for frivolous, unending wars, we could have universal healthcare, we could have universal education, we could pay for a mass transit system right now, high-speed rail, internet for all, we could have solar all over the place, right? We could be investing trillions of dollars into NASA and space exploration, because MMT stipulates that an economic system exists by the stroke of a pen. It is legislated into being, and therefore it is spent. That's what MMT is. And if you look at the value of the dollar, and if you look at how the federal taxes are allocated and the things that we're spending on, and if you look at the federal budget, but you also know that we're paying $1.5 trillion to corporate subsidies, it doesn't add up, because nowhere in the federal budget is $1.5 trillion earmarked for corporate subsidies. Doesn't add up. MMT is a thing that exists, but in practice, the way that we can wrap our heads around it is taxation, right? And because taxation is a concept that is readily understood, because it's easy to understand, it's written about, it's something that we can justify. Okay, if I pay 15% in taxes, I know that's going to generate this much revenue, and then we can allocate it for this amount of stuff. And yet we attack each other. I've seen Steve Grumbine very calmly, very clearly explain this much better than I just did. And yet people attack him for being whatever. Why? Why are we attacking him? If you don't understand it, or if you disagree, or if it doesn't make sense to you, why would you attack it? Why would you attack something that you don't understand? Is that not what Republicans are doing with climate change denial? It just needs to be said. It just needs to be said that we have to start working together. I might not agree with everything the Real Progressives does. And, I mean, there was a conversation that I had that was very unpleasant, and I'm still supporting them. Erica Bloss, again, I've had unpleasant conversations with her, but her Progressive Independent Party movement got recognition at the People's Summit, or the Convergence just recently. Kudos. Great. Fantastic. Help her. We need to be working together. Jordan Sheridan has a new show, right? He's still working with the Young Turks. The Young Turks, they're selling out. Who cares? They're still independent news network. They're still telling us the things that mainstream media won't. Jenks a Hillary shillbot sellout. Okay, so what if he is? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, he's fighting for the same thing you and me are fighting for. I'm running as a Democrat in Ohio. I said it. Universal healthcare, education, UBI, fight for 15 or more, profit sharing, clean energy. No more wars for foreign oil and poppy fields. These are my values. These are the things I'm fighting for, and that I will propose and fight for in Congress if I'm fortunate enough to win. Honestly, run as a Republican. Go. If you live in Alabama, Utah, the southern states in general, or in rural America especially, run as a Republican. Don't even try running as a Democrat, because you're going to lose. You just are. For a smaller race, state representative and below, you will lose. You are going to lose. You do not have a chance of winning. There is none. But what you can do is you can run as a Republican. And you can take your progressive agenda, and you can be unapologetic with that agenda. And you can speak to the conservatives in a way that they understand it. Not bashing their heads in because they don't understand universal health care and education. Talk about Medicare for all. Talk about how it'll save you money so that you can go spend your hard-earned labor. so that you're not spending your 50, 60-hour work week paycheck on insurance and co-pays and deductibles. Or maybe you want to be that mechanic and you want to get that next level of certification, but you can't because you can't afford school. Even a vocational school, you can't afford it because you're only making $15 an hour, working 60 hours a week just so you can keep the food on the table and your lights on. That's how you reach conservatives. You talk about the struggle. You talk about work. You talk about the bootstraps. You talk about the American dream. Yeah, as liberals, I can go to an impoverished African-American community and I'm like, this is crap. Just because you're black, just because you're Hispanic, just because you're Islamic, you don't have the same opportunities I'm afforded simply because of your color and your demographic and your religion, and that's bullshit. That is absolute bullshit. We can talk like that. We can reach each other like that. And we can talk about universal education and healthcare. We can talk about systemic racism. We can talk about the systemic policies in education and healthcare that prevents people from getting out of poverty and rising above. The American dream is alive and well, ladies and gentlemen. It absolutely is, if you're white and somewhat affluent. If you're poor, regardless, the American dream is dead to you. It's a carrot with a huge stick that it constantly beats you down. Why do you think the heroin epidemic is so strong? Why do you think gangs continue to thrive? Because society has failed these people time and time again. Because voter apathy, because of ballot denial, because of voter suppression. We can't be heard because we can't get the people elected that we need so that our voices can continue to be heard. Our protests are being ignored. Why? Because there is nothing in the Constitution that says a protest shall be adhered. Same thing with petitions. So yeah, we have to start working together. We have to start embracing our strengths to accommodate and offset the weaknesses of our counterparts. There is a strength to Dem enter, but there's also a weakness. Dem exit is the counterpart to that strength and weakness, and vice versa, conversely. If minorities in this country are suffering, then it is up to us with white privilege to step up and defend them. Not because they are weak, not because they are incapable, not because they don't know how to defend themselves, but because they are denied. Time and time again, women are denied access to healthcare, denied promotions, denied the ability to pursue a degree because they are women and no other reason. So yeah, white men better step the hell up and fight for women everywhere so they can get a degree, so they can get an education, so they can get that promotion. Every single woman CEO in this country got there because they were qualified and because they jumped through every single hoop imaginable. That's not right. That's completely unfair because I guarantee you not a single man, white or otherwise, would have been able to fulfill those particular obligations. Because, one, we're not used to it, and two, we wouldn't feel the need to. It's like, why should I have to go through this extra hoop? I am qualified, here's my resume, here's my list of whatever. That's what it should take. Same thing with this progressive movement. I don't care what your demographic is, and I don't care what your direction into revolution and reform is. Do it. Fight. Stand up, and stand up for each other. Quit kicking each other while we're all down. You know what that's going to do? It's going to cause all of us to fail. Because you know what? Tear me down. Let me lose my election. Who else in Ohio's 1st Congressional District is running on an unapologetic progressive platform? I'll wait. Tear Tim Canova down. Tear Nina Turner down because she's not doing enough for our revolution. Tear Tulsi Gabbard down because she's not Bernie Sanders. Tear Bernie Sanders down because he isn't doing enough in your opinion. Who else do we have? Who do we replace them with? With what structure do we fight with? What has activism done? We protest. Everybody loves a good protest, right? We are the ones that get attacked by law enforcement. We're the ones. Flint still doesn't have clean water, and there have been protests for years. DAPL is still ongoing. It's getting shut down in places, but essentially it's ongoing. But Nazis get to march in the streets. That is what our failure to unify has allowed to happen. And I do not apologize for speaking this harsh truth. And I have been the recipient of this vitriol. I don't care. Hate me. Disagree with everything I say unequivocally. I will still fight for you. I will still defend your rights. I will still fight for this progressive movement and this progressive agenda because it is necessary. Because we cannot allow this inexplicable corruption to continue unabated. And if I am the least of us, at least I am still part of us. And if you judge others in the same light, again, at least they are still part of the process. We cannot win on hubris and belief in will alone. Because if we could win on will alone, trust me, nobody's accused me of being weak-willed yet. There's plenty of us who are just as domineering. Plenty of us who have the strength and fortitude of will to succeed. But it isn't enough. We have to work together. Our strength is in numbers. Our strength is in unity. That is your role, to support one another. Stop getting hung up on the direction and the path. Focus on the goal. We want reform. We cannot get reform. We cannot achieve reform until we are elected, until we do infiltrate these caucuses and these parties and these different groups. We can't continue to organize and scream and shout and stomp our feet and say, well, they're not doing it enough. Help them. If they're not doing something right, support them, show them. Don't be abrasive about it. We need to educate each other. We will lose, and we will continue to lose until we stand united. Universal health care for all, Medicare for all, will never happen. Hillary Clinton's prophecy will come true. Because the Democrats aren't going to pass it, and the Republicans sure as hell aren't going to pass it. You know who will pass it? Me. Tulsi Gabbard, Bernie Sanders, Tim Canova, Stephen Jaffe. I don't know however many more progressive congressional candidates there are, but I know there are people running at the county level and at the city level that would absolutely vote for it. Jessica Butler, Ryan Ross, Noya Ayada. We are the ones who will guarantee the future for all. We, the people. And the only way that's going to happen is if we start working together in winning elections and supporting one another. That doesn't mean money. That doesn't mean agreeing with whatever everybody else says. That means not tearing each other down. Simply that. And if you can't bring yourself to help someone else that you disagree with on their path, do not get in their way. If nothing else, don't get in their way. But it's going to take time. It's going to take resources. It's going to take effort. It's going to take work. It's going to be grueling work. In the next few days, the Our Voice beta app will be live on the Android store and then within 2 weeks on the iPhone store. What that'll allow us to do is go door to door, and canvass and truly get a pulse of what people believe in our country. So that when we do run campaigns, we know exactly what to say, how to brand it, and who to reach. By precinct, by zip code, by district. And it'll be readily available to all of you. That is something we don't have. Nation Builder is $9,000. Who here can spend $9,000 to obtain Nation Builder? Who can spend $900 a month as a small, just started nonprofit to go door to door and find a mail list, a call list? And would that list even do you any good? We're building our own structures. We're building our own resources. And we have to utilize them. We have to support those endeavors and those initiatives. There are many groups out there doing the work that is needed. We need to elevate them. We need to highlight them. We need to share the knowledge. Your list, your 100 names, your 100 emails are useless if you don't use them properly. If there are 10 organizations with each having 100 unique names, and they're all essentially fighting for the same thing, but they never work together, that's 900 people that aren't being brought into a larger initiative. where 900 additional people could be part of the exposure process, could be liking and sharing your posts, that could be working with you while you're doing this specific thing, but they're going to help the other 9 organizations do their individual thing. Why are there hundreds of thousands clean energy, get oil out of our stop fracking organizations that are not working together? It's not enough what we're doing right now. Because we're angry and we're afraid, because we have been infiltrated, we have been attacked, and we have been stabbed in the back. We have seen the suffering. We have seen the failures of the past, but that cannot deter you from continuing on and fighting. You have to trust each other. We have to learn to trust each other. We don't have to like each other, and we don't have to agree with each other. We have to work together. E pluribus unum is exactly what our country was founded on, and that is exactly what we do not currently have or possess within our own movement. And that's why we're struggling. We are struggling because we are not embodying our own ideologies. We are the most diverse, welcoming, inclusive, forward-thinking generation in history. And yet we can't work together. How much sense does that make? And yet we feel that we are better than the Democrats and Republicans currently in office who refuse to work together, who attack one another like rabid animals. We need to ask ourselves who we wish to be, what kind of future we want, and what our role in that will be. 20, 30 years from now, can you look back at your actions today and live with the consequences? And say that I did everything in my power to fight back, to make a difference, to enable and embolden and empower my fellow countrymen, my fellow progressives. Can you say that? If the answer is no, if the answer is, but they're not listening, or if the answer is anything other than yes, and you can look yourself in the eye in a mirror and say it without blinking or looking away afterwards, then step up. I'm begging you, step up. Again, pick a path. Support that path and enable and empower the path next to you, because we are all heading forward. We are all moving towards that future, that progressive future, that utopian future where everybody can go to school, where everybody can get a job, where everybody can afford to live with whatever wages they're making, because no wage shall be less than a wage that can allow for a livable lifestyle. Not one that is just merely existence, but one where you can actually sustain and enjoy life, where we can have clean energy, where we can focus on technology that allows us to explore the stars. If we want that future, look at the man and the woman next to you. Look at the organizations on either side and realize that they are facing the same direction. They are walking beside you. They are walking beside you, shoulder to shoulder. It's just their particular path, their particular lane is their focus. That right there, that's the direction. So, I'm going to wrap this up slowly with some Q&A because I have a follow-up interview at 7, and I look forward to having that as well. And let's see, what do I got here? The goal is progressive majorities in legislative bodies, so the question becomes how best to do that. Ideally, we all push that through. We can't mix the issues with electoral politics. That's all. Right. I mean, I think if we could all come together, Dem enter, Dem exit, Bernie-crats, Green Party, Libertarians, everybody just came together and said, these are our candidates that we want in this area. And they all had their platform to speak, 30 minutes, just solid, tell us what you are all about. And we as a collective movement, as a collective entity said, in Iraq choice voting, we like this guy for Congress, we like this guy for state rep and state senate, and we all just agreed to it. We could fill every single ballot placement in the country. That is what we need to do. That is the pragmatism and the forward thinking that we need. We don't need 15 people running for Congress. We need 15 people running for 15 positions in 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, and every single election year. That is what we need. Next one. See, and this is the other point. Progressive Dems want everyone to vote in the Dem primaries to boot the neoliberal, but if the Progressive Dem makes it to the general, the Green is more likely to lose to the Progressive Dem. Again, why would we waste our efforts splitting the vote and the support amongst two candidates vying for the same position when we could be supporting two candidates vying for two positions and possibly unseating both? It's a 100% net victory. It's a net gain of 100%. Now imagine if the California special election didn't have 21 candidates running for Congress and instead had one progressive, whatever neoliberal, and whatever Republican. We could have pulled all of our resources behind that one progressive that we collectively chosen, whether it was Kenny Mejia, Arturo, or the other two. I don't remember them. It could have been one of those four, and if we collectively had supported one of them, we might have won. And in fact, we would have won, because collectively all those votes combined was greater than the one that did win. That is our power. That is our strength. And that is what I encourage all of us to do. And that's the kind of campaign I'm running. I'm trying to work with other candidates. I'm trying to elevate them every chance I can get. I'm trying to share and post and retweet everybody else's literature and information every chance I get. Why? Because I want them to win. I would rather 400,000 candidates win and me lose, but we take over every single thing, than me win and 400,000 other people lose. It's not about me. It's about collectively all of us winning. That has to be our focus. Let me look at this one here. Oh, where did it go? Yeah, the more long-term movement building and less short-term shoot the moon thinking. That's the whole collaboration. And it sounds like I'm a broken record, and I get it, because I am. We have to work together. That's just not a question. That is not a debate. The only way we're going to have long-term strategies and networks and structure is if we build it now. That's, again, why I started Our Voice. To be nothing less than a platform and a repository of information and data to find others, other like-minded individuals. Because if we don't have that alone, how are we going to find each other? How are we going to work with each other? And once we find each other, why would we then waste our time and energy to attack one another? So in closing, we have the capacity right now to win across the board. We just have to understand that we're all working together, that just because we're side by side and not marching along the same path does not mean we are on the same team. We are. We always have been. And it's time to put those hatchets aside, to bury those differences and focus on the future. So, thank you for watching. I need to get ready for the other interview, and again, thank you for having me. I'll be here next week. Take care, everybody. Hope you've had a wonderful weekend.